This jar contains one of the most venomous creatures on the planet, a prehistoric predator whose venom can kill a human in minutes. And it was probably captured by an accountant from Hornsby using a dessert spoon.
Right. So there was an official government-approved method for this? Did you have to get a license? Was there a specific Tupperware model they recommended for maximum public safety?
That's precisely it. And this bizarre public program, this unlikely alliance, is the only thing keeping this creature from returning to its former self, a suburban serial killer. To understand why a Sydneysider would risk their life for this spider, you need to understand what the world was like before this alliance. A world where a single bite was a death sentence. In the sweltering heat of a Sydney summer, the suburban soundtrack was the drone of cicadas and the whir of lawnmowers. But beneath that idyllic surface, there was a quiet, creeping anxiety. Before 1981, the Sydney funnel web spider wasn't just a pest. It was a household name synonymous with a sudden, horrifying death. Officially, 13 fatalities were recorded, but that number doesn't capture the psychological grip it held over the city. It forced a generation to adopt rituals of fear, shaking out shoes before putting them on, checking bed sheets, never leaving clothes on the floor. It was a low-level domestic terror.
So what was the vibe back then? I mean, what were the horror stories people told to scare their kids?
The fear was that the threat wasn't out in the bush. It had already infiltrated the home. Let's unpack this. The male funnel web, whose venom is up to 6 times more potent, has a biological imperative to roam during the warmer months looking for a mate.
Wait a minute. Why is the male more dangerous? That seems completely backwards from the rest of the animal kingdom.
It's one of nature's deadliest evolutionary accidents. The key weapon in the male's venom, a neurotoxin called delta-atratoxin, didn't evolve for hunting. The leading theory is that it developed as a rapid-acting defensive weapon against vertebrate predators, like birds or reptiles, to protect the male during his vulnerable search for a mate. Unfortunately for us primates, our nervous system is a uniquely perfect and accidental target for this weapon. It works by forcing all our nerve cells' sodium channels to fire at once, creating a devastating electrical storm throughout the body. Muscles spasm, blood pressure spikes, and breathing can cease. It's a perfect weapon that was never intended for us, but it works with terrifying efficiency. They crawled under doors, were found in shoes left on the porch, in piles of laundry on the floor. Sydney's massive urban sprawl had perfectly overlapped with the spider's prime territory, turning every backyard into a potential conflict zone.
Oh man, that's a whole different level of fear. It's not the idea of stumbling across a monster out in the wilderness. It's the terror of knowing the monster might already be inside your house, just waiting in the dark.
It was an invisible, omnipresent threat, and the panic was justified. But far from the suburban dread, one man was already, quietly, building the Ark. Decades before the crisis reached its peak, a visionary naturalist named Worrell saw what no one else did. The official report tells one story, but the roots of the solution go much further. He didn't just see dangerous creatures, he saw untapped potential. In an era when most people's response to venomous wildlife was a shovel, Worrell was meticulously cataloging, studying, and most importantly, preserving them. His collection, which started in 1949 and became the Australian Reptile Park in 1958, was built on a radical idea.
So it was the world's first lethal subscription service? Pay $10 to look at a snake and you're funding the antidote for when it inevitably escapes and finds you at home? Genius.
Exactly. Worrell's genius was in creating a self-funding model for life-saving research. He knew that pure scientific grants were unreliable. By wrapping the lab in the spectacle of a tourist park, he created an economic engine to fund the slow, expensive, and often thankless work of venom research, building the infrastructure for a crisis no one else yet saw coming. But the emergency arrived with devastating force. In January 1979, 2-year-old James Cully. Just 1 year later, in January 1980, 3-year-old Christine Sturgis. 2 young children, both gone, victims of funnel web spider bites.
Oh man, that just changes everything, doesn't it? It's not a scary statistic anymore. These are kids. The pressure to find a cure must have become unbearable. To understand that pressure, we need to look beyond the statistic. Let's take the case of James Cully. On a summer's day in January 1979, the Cully family were at home in Beacon Hill. James, just 2 years old, was playing in the garden. No one saw the spider. The bite was to his toe. What followed was every parent's nightmare. The frantic rush to the hospital, the doctors working furiously but with no weapons to fight back. The venom acted with brutal speed. Within hours, James was gone. His story, splashed across the newspapers, turned the city's fear into a collective cry of grief and anger. It was no longer a question of if a cure could be found, but how quickly. These tragedies lit a fire under the scientific community. The weight of a city's grief and the glare of national media fell squarely on one man, Dr. Struan Sutherland. The challenge was immense. For years, the venom had proven too complex. Its key neurotoxin, a compound called delta-atritoxin, resisting all attempts to neutralization. Previous efforts had resulted in antivenoms that were ineffective, or worse, dangerously reactive in humans. But now, with a steady supply of venom from Worrell's Park and the pressure of a ticking clock, Sutherland and his team at Commonwealth Serum Laboratories worked relentlessly, refining their techniques. The breakthrough, when it came in 1981, wasn't just a scientific success. It was a moment of national catharsis, and the impact was absolute. Before 1981, 13 documented deaths. Since the antivenom was released, 0. There has not been a single confirmed death from a funnel web spider bite in over 40 years. The fact that science could achieve such a total victory is incredible. If you agree, hit that subscribe button and join us as we explore more stories like this.
Wow, so they really did it. They completely neutralized a threat that seemed invincible. But hang on, if the weapon was created, why isn't the war over? Why do people still need to hunt these spiders?
Because victory in war depends on a steady supply of ammunition. The antivenom isn't a vaccine, it's a treatment. And to produce it, you need one key ingredient: pure venom. The Australian Reptile Park became the world's only supplier.
So how does that even work? How do you turn a drop of that milky white venom into a vial that saves someone's life?
It's a journey that's as delicate as it is ingenious. After being milked, that precious drop of venom is instantly freeze-dried, turning it into a stable white powder. This is crucial, as the raw venom is a highly fragile biological compound. Batches of this powder are then transported under high security to the only company in Australia that carries on this work, Securus. And this is where other unsung heroes enter the story: rabbits. Tiny, non-lethal doses of the venom powder are injected into rabbits over a period of months. Their immune systems, unlike ours, can fight it off, producing powerful antibodies. It's the plasma from the blood of these rabbits rich with those life-saving antibodies that is harvested and purified to create the antivenom used in hospitals.
That's incredible. So the full journey is spider to keeper to freeze-dry lab to rabbit, and only then does it get to a human. It's an extraordinary chain of survival.
This is the kind of detail you won't find in any book. The extraction process, known as milking, is a ritual of intense focus performed in a sterile, silent lab.
Hang on, what does milking a spider actually involve, step by step?
With movements that are slow and deliberate, a keeper uses long forceps to encourage the spider onto a clean surface. The spider, sensing a threat, rears into its iconic defensive posture, fangs exposed and dripping with venom. In that split second, the keeper must move a glass pipette with surgical precision to the tip of a single fang. A gentle vacuum draws out a tiny, precious droplet of milky white venom. The entire procedure is a ballet of controlled risk,
as the spider's fangs are sharp and strong enough to pierce a human fingernail.
You have to wonder what the spider is thinking. Ugh, not this guy with the pipette again. It's Monday morning, I haven't even had my coffee, which is, liquefied insects.
But even with their expertise, they couldn't keep up with demand. The life cycle of the males, the most venomous, is short. They needed a constant supply of new spiders. And so the most bizarre and uniquely Australian solution was born. They asked the public for help.
So they went from issuing death warnings to issuing collection instructions. I bet there was a government pamphlet. How to apprehend a mobile death machine using common kitchen utensils, a guide for the civically minded citizen.
It was a monumental task in public relations. How do you rewire a primal fear into a civic duty? The program's genius was that it didn't dismiss the public's fear, it respected it. The Australian Reptile Park launched a clear and methodical education campaign, complete with diagrams and demonstrations. They showed people exactly how to create a safe containment system with a glass jar, a spoon, and some damp cotton wool. This wasn't about being a hero, it was about following a procedure. They transformed a moment of panicked terror into a calm, mechanical, and life-saving action. And the need for that action was, and still is, immense. To manufacture a single dose of antivenom, it can take the milking of up to 150 funnel web spiders. That constant flow of public donations isn't just helpful, it is the living, breathing backbone of the entire program.
That's unreal. So every single time someone survives a bite, they're not just thanking the scientists, they're thanking some random bloke who was brave enough to corner a spider in his laundry. Now that is a community effort. I've got to ask the legends watching this, could you do it? Could you actually bring yourself to trap one of these things, knowing what it is? Let me know in the comments.
An entire city's deepest fear, a creature that was once a symbol of pure terror, has been redefined. It's now a dangerous but essential partner in modern medicine. It demonstrates a profoundly Australian pragmatism, that the civic duty to save lives, in this case, trumps the instinctive fear of one of the world's most venomous creatures.
It's just a bizarre concept to get your head around, isn't it? That's the Aussie way, eh? Make a deal with the devil if it keeps everyone safe. It makes you wonder what other bizarre bargains we've struck to survive here.
It is a story of survival that has become a powerful metaphor for the Australian character. It underscores a profound, almost stubborn pragmatism, that when faced with a deadly problem, the solution is not to panic, but to methodically turn that threat into a tool. Through science, courage, and an incredible amount of civic trust, an entire city transformed its deepest fear into a powerful alliance for life.
Right, and that's the bottom line. This whole case file shows how we learn to manage a monster. The next one we're opening is about what happens when we fail. If you want to be there when we crack that case, this is your official invite to join the legends on this journey.
This was the story of a creature we learned to control, a threat we turned into a partnership. But what happens when that partnership fails? What is the price of a lie that lasts for decades? The funnel web was a monster we faced head-on. The Tasmanian tiger was a creature we erased and then pretended was gone for good. Join us as we uncover the shocking evidence in our most important case file yet, the evidence that proves Australia's greatest lie. It's on your screen now. The truth is waiting.